This mastery quiz, your first mastery quiz in Trig, mixes up linear and quadratic equations. Because one of the things you need to recognize now is which one's linear and which one's quadratic. It's actually pretty easy. If you see an x squared, it's quadratic. This one's got to be quadratic, it has an x squared. This one has to be linear, there is no x squared in that problem at all. Then you have to make sure you use linear stuff with the linear problem, quadratic stuff with the quadratic problem. Just because of the way it is organized, I'm going to do the quadratic problem first. Quadratic problems, you have a couple options. You can factor, which is often the easiest. You can do the difference of two squares, which is a mess, or you can use the quadratic formula. Factoring is that thing where we do this, right? An x and x. To multiply to get 8, you do 4 and 2. But they both have to be negative to make it an 8, and we can't get to the negative 2. So this one doesn't factor. Because it doesn't factor, we need to use the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If you don't have that memorized by now, do it, weenie. Opposite of b is 2 plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c. 2 times a. Good idea is put sure to put the variables values in parentheses. That helps get the math right. Then we do the math on the outside in our brains. We do the math on the bottom in our brains. We do this thing on the inside in the square root in the calculator. Just type it in the calculator exactly as it looks. Don't lose any of the parentheses. Make sure you type it exactly as it looks and you'll get the right answer. Okay? This is where most people make their mistakes. Most people make their mistakes right here. But calculators don't make a mistake. Calculator. Calculators don't make mistakes here, so use your calculator. It will tell you the answer is negative 28. Okay? We have one more step to do then because we ended up with a negative sign underneath the square root. That means our answer is imaginary. So our final answer here is 2 plus or minus I times the square root of 28 over 2. That's all you need to do for the quiz. Alright, the next problem is linear. You don't have to factor. There's no quadratic formula to do with linear. Linear is very easy. You go back to Algebra 1 and you just do the things that you were taught there. You can subtract 3x from both sides and then divide both sides by 4. Done. Adding and subtracting to both sides, multiplying and dividing both sides. That's how you solve linear problems. That doesn't work in quadratics. In quadratics, you need to either factor or use the quadratic formula. All right, keep practicing.